Hi, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Pearson, your elementary ELL teacher. Today we're going to focus on the oral retell for first grade journeys, lesson 12, and you're going to retell the story How Leopard Got His Spots, which is a folk tale. So for this lesson, we're going to turn and talk. That means I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to think about your answer. Then you're going to pair up with a partner, or you can be my virtual partner. And then you're going to share out your answer orally through speaking and share it in a complete sentence or sentences. So let's review our vocabulary and sight words because you might use some of these important words when you are retelling the folk tale, How Leopard Got His Spots. Number 1, brown. Brown is a color. Tree bark and mud are brown. Number 2, own. Own means that something belongs to you or his or hers. Number 3, very. Very means a lot, like a very long list or a very big animal. Number 4, off. Off means away from, off. Number 5, never. Never means at no time. It means not ever, not at all. Number 6, no. No means to have information or understand how to do something, like, I know the answer. Number 7, out. Out used with call means to say something loudly. Out can also mean to not be in. Number 8, been. Been is a word to show that something happened in the past. And number 9, cruel. Cruel, something is cruel when it brings pain or makes you feel bad, to be mean. And finally, number 10, struggling. If you are struggling, you are fighting or making a great effort with your body or mind to do something. Folk tales. Folk tales are stories that have been told orally from generation to generation. Trickster, a character in the story who tries to outsmart the other characters. Trickster. Moral. A moral is a lesson about life that a fable teaches. The moral can usually be found at the end of the story. So here is our learning target. I can retell the folk tale, How Leopard Got His Spots, using pictures, words, and sentences. So, success criteria. That means, how will you know you're successful at retelling the folk tale, How Leopard Got His Spots, with pictures, words, and sentences? Well, we're going to take it one step at a time, and here are our steps to success, to reaching the learning target. I will answer the talk about it questions. Number 2, I will say and match the characters and setting. Number 3, I will say and match the lesson or moral of the story, what the characters learned. Number 4, I will put the retelling pictures in the correct sequence or order. And finally, number 5, I will say and match the sentences to each picture, saying what happened first, then, later, and last. Let's go over our turn and talk rules. When you have someone to talk to, you are facing the speaker, eye to eye and knee to knee if you're sitting crisscross applesauce. Number 2, first one person talks, the other person listens. Number 3, then the next person talks, the other person listens. But do not talk too long on your turn, or your partner will not have time to have a turn. You may agree with what I say and say, I agree with you because, and then you need to tell me why. Or you may disagree with me or a partner at home. And you can do that respectfully by saying, I disagree with you because, and say why. So here's our first major event in the story. It's on page 48. Actually, it's the beginning of Once Upon a Time. Does this story tell fact or is it make believe? How do you know? Does this story tell fact or is it make believe? How do you know? So you can say this story tells fact or this story tells make believe. I know this because, and tell me why. So this story tells, I know this because. Well, this story tells make believe. I know this because the animals act like humans, and animals don't paint other animals, and that's not really how they got their spots. So you can find this picture or major event in our first grade Journeys textbook on pages 49 and 50. You can read about it. And your question is, why does Hal, or what does Hal do to Fred after they play? What does Hal, the hyena, do to Fred the turtle after they play? So after they play, Hal, so say it out loud, after they play, Hal, well, after they play, Hal uh, pushes Fred the turtle into the bushes or the grass or the leaves. He lets him fall into the leaves and leaves him there. He tricks him. You can read about this major event on pages 52 of 53 of our first grade Journeys text. Why are Len the leopard and Fred Turtle glad? So you see Len leopard and you see Fred Turtle. And why are they glad? What happened that made them glad? They are glad because, well, they are glad because Len comes and helps Fred Turtle out of the out of the leaves, out of the branches, out of the plants. So they're glad because Len helped him and now he's no longer stuck in the plants. So here's another major event. What did Fred Turtle just do? Fred Turtle has his paintbrush. You can reread about this on pages 60 to 61. How did Fred change Len Leopard, Zell Zebra, and Jill Giraffe? How did Fred change Len Leopard, Zell Zebra, and Jill Giraffe? Look closely at what Len has or what Fred has in his hand. So Fred changed them by, well, Fred changed them by painting stripes on zebra and painting spots on the giraffe, Jill Giraffe, and painting spots on Len Leopard. Why does Fred decide to play a trick on Hal? So Hal Hyena says, I want to be painted too. Please paint me. So why does Fred decide to play a trick on Hal? So instead of painting him, he just splashes and splatters paint on Hal Hyena. So Fred decides to play a trick on Hal because why does Fred do that? Well, Fred decides to play a trick on Hal because Hal tricked him and pushed him into the plants and left him there, and he was stuck. So he decides to play a trick on Hal so that Hal knows what it feels like to get tricked. He, instead of painting him carefully like he did on the other animals, he splashes and splatters him with paint. You can reread about this major event on page 63 of our first grade Journeys textbook. How did Fred and Len show that they care about each other? How did Fred and Len show that they care about each other? So they both each other. Well, they both cared and took care of each other. Len Leopard helped Fred Turtle out of the plants, and Fred Turtle showed that he cared by painting spots on Len Leopard. And they decided they'd not trick each other and that they'd be good friends. All right, so now retell of how Leopard got his spots. You're going to say what happens, and I'm going to give you sentence frames to do that. So the main characters are, who are the main or most important characters in the story? The main characters are, so say it out loud. The main characters are, well, the main characters are Fred Turtle, Len Leopard, and Hal Hyena. There's other characters, but these are the main ones. The setting is, where does the story take place? The setting is the jungle. The setting is the jungle. So let's put the pictures in the correct sequence or order that we talked about. So first, this happened. Then, later, and last. So first, what did Hal Hyena do to Fred Turtle? So first, Hal Hyena first, Hal Hyena was cruel to Fred Turtle and tricked him. Fred felt very sad. So you notice there's the word cruel and very in our sentence. So first, Hal Hyena was cruel to Fred Turtle and tricked him. Fred felt very sad. Then what happened? What did Len Leopard do? Then Len Leopard then Fred was struggling to get out of the plants. Len Leopard chops them off. They are glad. They're so glad that they dance in the sun. So Fred was struggling to get out of the plants. Len Leopard chops them off. They are glad. So if you notice, we have our vocabulary or sight words, struggling, chops, and off. Fred was struggling to get out of the plants. Len Leopard chops them off. They are glad. So later, what does Fred Turtle do? Later, Fred Turtle Fred paints brown spots on Len, but splashes Hal. So later, Fred carefully paints brown spots on Len, but splashes and splatters Hal and tricks Hal. So last, what happens last? Last, Len and Fred are. Well, last, Len and Fred are very good friends and will never trick each other. So there's our words very and never. Len and Fred are very good friends and will never trick each other. So in the end, Hal Hyena learned to. So what was the lesson for Hal Hyena? What was the moral of the story? In the end, Hal Hyena learned to. He learned to not trick. That's what got him in trouble in the first place. All right, now that we've answered the talk about it questions, said the characters and setting, and the lesson, and what happened in the correct sequence, you're going to reflect on how well you hit the learning target. I can retell the folktale How Leopard Got His Spots using my words, pictures, and sentences. So, would you give yourself a 4? I could teach this lesson. I easily answered the questions out loud and retold the story using the sentence starters. Or 3, would you give yourself a 3? I was able to answer most of the questions out loud and retold the story using the sentence starters. Or would you give yourself a 2? I was able to answer some of the questions out loud and retold some of the story using the sentence starters. Or would you give yourself a 1? I was not able to answer the questions and did not retell the story. How do you think you did today? 4, 3, 2, or 1? Well, boys and girls, it was a pleasure retelling the story How Leopard Got His Spots with you. I had fun. I hope you did too. Have a great day.